For this problem, we're supposed to rewrite these only in terms of ln2 and ln3. So for all these, we need to break them down into 2's and 3's because that's how they want our answer. So ln 0.25. What we need to do here is change 0.25 into a fraction. So I'm going to rewrite this as ln of 1/4. Property number 3 for the algebraics says that we can turn this into negative ln of 4. So again, that's applying that 1/y property, and we get this. I did do this a little bit differently in the notes just to show you there are multiple ways of doing these. You could also separate it and do ln1 minus ln4, but I wanted to do it this way for you to show you there's multiple ways of doing it. Okay, so I have negative ln of 4. Now that's not in terms of ln2, so I need to change this. So I'm going to change the 4 into 2 squared. So the negative sign's got to still be there, so I'm changing it into 2 squared because that way I get that ln2. And then it's better to bring the 2 down in front. So the final answer is going to be negative 2 ln2. That's the final answer for this one. It's written in terms of ln2, which is fine. Usually you don't want to leave exponents in your answer. You usually want to change them into a constant in front. Let's next take a look at ln 24. So 24, we're going to break that down into primes, into prime numbers, basically 2's and 3's, particularly because this is all we can do as far as writing our answers in 2's and 3's. Okay, so we're going to change the 24. 24 can be written a couple different ways. Okay, so we can write that first way is going to be, we can do 3 times 8. So I'm going to do a 3 there because I got an ln 3, and then there's going to be an 8 left over, but the 8 I want to break down into a power of 2 if I can. So I can break that down into 3 times 2 cubed. So now it's in terms of 3's and 2's, and once that happens, now I can use log properties to break that apart. So at this point, multiplication turns into addition. That's going to use the first property for the algebraics. Okay, so I'm going to do ln of 3 plus ln of 2 cubed. So I got that. The last thing I'll do is I can bring the power down front. That's using the fourth property, says that we can do that for the algebraics. So our final answer, ln 3 plus 3 ln of 2. That would be the final answer. Now if you were to put into a calculator, you would do ln 24, you get a decimal for that one, and then put this in your calculator, get a decimal. You should get exactly the same answer. All we're doing is we're breaking this one up, writing it in terms of ln2, ln3, because that's what the instructions told us to do. So that's our final answer for that one. Let's do part C. For part C, we have a cube root, so the first thing I want to do is change it into a fractional power. So I'll change it into 12 to the 1/3, and of course the 1/3 by property number 4, that can be brought down in front. But the 12, what I need to do is do the same thing I did for the 24. I want to break that up into powers of 2 and 3. This can be written as 12 can be written as 3 times 4, but instead of writing it as 4, I'm going to write it as 2 squared. So I have 3 times 2 squared. That's going to give us 12. So again, the idea is think about how we can write this in terms of 2's and 3's, and we can get it this way. We're going to do the same thing we did in this step here. We're going to break it up with a plus. Now because there's a 1/3 on the outside, we have to be careful. We need to leave it there. And then we're going to do ln 3 plus ln of 2 squared. So you got to leave the 1/3 on the outside. The very last step is the 2 we can bring down in front. So final answer will be 1/3 outside with the bracket. We have ln 3 plus 2 ln of 2. So this right here would be the final way. That's how you can rewrite C in terms of ln 3 and ln 2. Okay, we have one more where we're working with log properties. We want to take this expression and turn it into a single logarithm. That means that we want to combine it together. And then if there's any kind of reducing we can do with that, you want to do that on these problems as well. First thing we noticed here is there's a plus sign in between, which will turn into multiplication. And I also noticed there's a 2 that's in front. Before we put these both together as multiplication, it's better to remove any kind of numbers that you have down in front. So we want to move those up first. So the first thing we'll do is bring the 2 up and turn it into a power. So then we have this one here as a square. Now that we have this, we can combine these both together as a multiplication. So we'll do ln of 4x cubed minus 20x squared. That's going to be multiplied by 1 over 2x squared. So now it's just a matter of doing some algebra here to simplify it. So we're going to do 4x cubed minus 20x squared. And then this can be written like this over 4x squared, because when you raise it, don't forget you're squaring both of those inside the parentheses. That's why it's got to be a 4 down there. And then from here, what we can do is we can break up each of these. We can divide everything on top by the 4x squared and the bottom, just to make things simpler. So 4x cubed over 4x squared minus 20x squared over 4x squared. You can do that. And then finally, we can break each of these down. So the 4's cancel out. You just get x. And then this, 20 divided by 4 is 5. The x squareds cancel out. And so then that would be your most simplified answer. Your final answer is natural log of x minus 5. It's a single logarithm like they're asking, but again, when you do these questions, particularly if you're working with an online homework system, it's probably going to require you to do some simplifying and simplify it down as far as you can go. So this would be your final answer. So I want to point out that this was done a little bit differently than the way I did it in the notes, but just showing you there's 2 different possible ways of doing it. So in the notes, I factored this part and then canceled out the 4x squared. That'll work and give you the same exact answer, but because I noticed that there was 1 term on the bottom, sometimes that might be easier to break it up and to do this. And it eliminates the need to do factoring. However, if there was something being added or subtracted on the bottom, then factoring would be your best way there, because that's the only way you could cancel it out from the bottom. But single term means that you can separate the fraction this way. So just wanted to make sure you know of the 2 different ways of doing this problem. You would have gotten the same answer.